Hello, it's Catherine here, bringing you Ruth Chapter 2 and 3 Part 2. I am dressed in this way to give you an image of what it would have been like for Ruth and Naomi. They would have not dressed up. They would have had their hair possibly tied back. They might have even had a black covering over their head. So they wouldn't have dressed themselves up at all. So I'm going to be speaking to you as a widow, like Ruth and Naomi, just so you can get a picture of what it was like for the first part of Ruth chapter 1, 2, and then the beginning of chapter 3. So now you've watched the video and you've done the first question and answer session, Ruth chapter 2 and 3 part 1. Now we're going into part 2. So these are the scriptures I would love you to read again with yourselves. That would be on your own or in your group. Read Ruth chapter 3, and then you can pause the video and then play again. When you've played again, read 2 Samuel 12 verse 22, and then Ezekiel 16 and Leviticus 25 verse 25. So I'd like you to just pause the video and read those scriptures, because we're going to be discussing questions based on those scriptures. So you can pause the video for a sec, go through those scriptures, and then push play. Now that you've read those scriptures, we can go on to the questions. So my first question is, what kind of clothing was Naomi and Ruth wearing before Ruth went to the threshing floor? And that's why I'm wearing what I'm wearing. She would have been wearing black mourning clothes, not attractive clothes. Her and Naomi would have been wearing dark black, not good looking clothes at all. The next thing I want you to think about is Naomi's timing. And I think this we can think of, reflect on in our lives today. So Naomi didn't send Ruth out in the day where there were lots of other women and people to watch what she was doing. She didn't send Naomi in the middle of the hectic harvest time, where Boaz's mind would have been focused on work and the stress of getting the harvest in before the rain or the wind. Naomi's timing was perfect in terms of the harvest was done. It was a celebratory night that the harvest was complete. And this is good for us to think about as women. If we want to approach our husbands, or we want to approach our dad or someone to discuss something, don't go and ask a question when they're in the middle of business or busyness. Wait until they're relaxed. Wait until a project's maybe finished. Wait until a weekend. Wait. As Ruth and Naomi waited, and they waited on the Lord, wait for the timing to ask a question. This I'm still learning, but I've definitely learned from Naomi in this. So now Ruth is under Naomi's protection. Ruth sees Naomi as her mom. She's taken on Naomi's guard, and she's also taken on Naomi's culture. And what I'll also link to this video is we just had a sermon this last Sunday about culture, and we have to see whatever we're reading through that culture. So we have to look at the book of Ruth through the Jewish Old Testament culture, and we can't look at it through our lenses and our culture. The same as different things that happen, we've got to look at it within why is someone responding that way? Oh, it's their worldview, it's their culture. It's really important to understand the culture that someone is coming from that shapes their worldview. But I'll attach that sermon at the end of this video if you didn't get to watch it or see it as we did on Sunday. So back to Ruth and Naomi. Naomi's culture. So she had the right timing, and she wasn't making Ruth do something sinful. It was in their context and their culture. Now, if you read Leviticus 25:25, it's talking about the redemption of property. So you must understand Naomi was in a house and had property that belonged to her husband and her sons, but they'd all died. So 2 widows living on the land, they have property that can be redeemed. And it can only be redeemed by a family relation called a kinsman redeemer. So you'll see in chapter 25, verse 23 of Leviticus, it says, "The land shall not be sold for perpetuity, for the land is mine, for you are strangers and sojourners with me, and in all the country you possess, you shall allow a redemption of the land." Now verse 25. "If your brother becomes poor and sells part of his property, then his nearest redeemer shall come and redeem what his brother has sold. If a man has no one to redeem it, then himself becomes prosperous and finds sufficient means to redeem it. Let him calculate the years since he sold it and pay back the balance to the man to whom he sold it." So the point is, both Naomi and Ruth belong to that land. So if a close relative were to come and redeem that land, they would then take on taking care of Ruth and Naomi because they're part of the land. That's part of their culture and their tradition. So have that in mind as we go into the story. So now Naomi says to Ruth, it's harvest time, it's end of the harvest time, go there, but now let's take off our mourning clothes. And so this is the first time she's instructed Ruth, take off your mourning clothes. You don't need to wear those anymore, so take them off. So she can dress up now. She can look wonderful, and she can take off the sackcloth in the mourning, and she can make herself look glamorous and beautiful. Maybe she puts perfumes on, and maybe she puts some makeup on. And I'm just going to do this because it helps you to see the difference. When I started the video, what I was wearing, I looked makeup brightens on, colourful clothing. So now she's all dressed up, and I don't know what she would have worn, but it just gives you a contrast to what I was wearing, the black and the drab, and not smelling with perfumes. Now she's smelling with perfumes. She's looking beautiful, and she gets sent out into the night. So now I'd like you to discuss as a group, do you think what Naomi did with Ruth was right or wrong? Discuss in a group, why do you think it was wrong? Or discuss, why do you think it was right? And is it connected to culture? Was it biblical? It's a good thing to discuss. Then let's go on to question 4. So question 1 was, what kind of clothing were they wearing before the threshing floor? Then obviously Naomi instructed Ruth to change and dress up, so now she looks colourful. Question 2, Naomi's timing to send Ruth, not in the day, not in the busiest time, but in celebrating time, in the evening. Talk about the timing and the wisdom that Naomi had, and we can also reflect on that as women, the timing to bring something to our husbands or our fathers. Number 3, what Naomi asked of Ruth, do you think it was wrong or right? Discuss that. And now number 4, Boaz's response could have been rejection. So, he's sleeping, it's at night, this woman comes to his feet. He could have been like, what are you doing? But he waits for her to respond. And then as soon as she brings in, will you be my redeemer? Then he sees the context of why she's at his feet. And then he responds, not with rejection, not with words, oh, you're a prostitute, because he understands that because of his mother, who was a prostitute. So he doesn't name her anything, that he wants to give her dignity and honor. and he wants to protect her, like Psalm 91, like the Father God brings us under his wing. So Boaz was bringing Ruth under his wing in an honoring way. So what I often think is, did Boaz, was he hoping that she would come to him? And he speaks to say, you've honored me in coming. You're a young woman, and I'm old, and you've come to me. And perhaps he was always thinking she would go to the Redeemer closest to her, but she chose him. And it seems that he is ready with an answer for her. So it always makes me think maybe he was already prepared and hoping she would come, so he'd have an immediate response and an immediate plan. So the way he responds is, I'm not the Redeemer, there's a closer one, but I'm going to make a plan. Trust me, Ruth, I'm going to make a plan. Just stay here, I'll protect you for the night, I won't harm you. And then he gives her food so she can go early back, that no one can question her. They'll just think, oh, she's gone to buy food. So he honors her, he protects her. So just the question is, it could have been rejection, but it wasn't, and you can discuss Boaz's response. Then you can also discuss, how did Boaz honor and protect Ruth? Like Psalm 91, you can perhaps read that again and see how he protected her. And then finally, I just wanted to say, don't see this chapter as scandalous and evil or wrong. It's see this chapter in the light of culture, of their tradition, of what was in their Old Testament. And everything that Naomi did and what Ruth did was biblical and was right. And Boaz's response was biblical and right. And let it just challenge us with our preconceived ideas to always stop and wait and examine the culture, examine the context in the Bible before we make judgment. So I hope this question and answer session has been encouraging, and I pray that it will bless you. God bless you.